All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, this is Jim Morgenstern with Integro, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join us today. In sponsorship of the National Archives, we're here today to discuss content management and governance of email, including considerations of the NARA capstone approach, best practices that we're experiencing out in the industry today, and also a brief demonstration of an available commercial solution which can help your agencies comply with the 2016 Presidential Memorandum. I'll take care of a couple of housekeeping items, and then we'll jump right into the agenda and get into the content. Everyone is in listen-only mode. If you do have a question during this webinar, please type it into the question panel in your dashboard on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will address those questions at the conclusion of the 60-minute presentation. Contact information will be provided at the conclusion of the presentation to obtain additional follow-on information. And also, it's important to note that this session can be repeated for your particular agency. If there are individuals that weren't able to attend today, based on the information shared, you'd like to draw others into the conversation, we can repeat this on an individual basis for your agency. So again, don't hesitate to reach out to the contact information that will be provided. Agenda slide, Scott. As indicated, we're going to go through some brief introductions of the individuals that will be speaking today. And we'll begin our discussion by highlighting NARA's capstone approach and how that ties in with the management of email as a volatile and dynamic content type, and add some additional considerations, again, that we're experiencing out in the industry as organizations look to do a better job of managing this content type called email. We'll transition into a brief high-level demonstration of what's possible for doing a better job of managing email on an ongoing basis. We'll respond to any questions that come in, again, through the question panel in your GoToWebinar dashboard on the right-hand side of your screen, and conclude with a recommended action plan. We have a proof of concept package that is available to enable your agency to get into the sandbox and have an opportunity to interact with the solutions that we're going to be unveiling today to validate its applicability for your agency. So with that, I'm going to turn the microphone and presentation over to B. John Masters from IMC.
Thank you, Jim, and good afternoon, everyone. On the line, we have myself, John Masters. I'm a subject matter expert with a company called IMC, and I'll elaborate on us in just a bit more. Also, we have on the line Jim Morgenstern, who introduced himself initially, who is with Integro. Scott Burt is also with Integro and will be speaking right after I finish. And then Jeff Dunning is also a subject matter expert with Integro, and Jeff will be doing our demonstration today. Very briefly, IMC has been in the records and content management industry for about 33 years now. We have about 350 employees. We do work in both federal and other government agencies, as well as commercial business. And we're headquartered in Reston, Virginia, so obviously we're close at hand for working with the government. We have an operation in Pune, India. Some of our clients wish to take advantage of the ability to have 24-hour coverage, plus the sometimes lower cost of offshore development. We do work in the financial services industries, health and life sciences, as well as, again, government. So, Scott, the next slide, please. Or I have control, I think. These are just, I won't spend a lot of time on this. These are just a few of the services that IMC can offer. We do records management consulting, strategy and tactical kinds of consulting, as well as implementation. We're also partnered with most of the major content and records management solution providers, such as IBM, EMC's Documentum, Captiva, Kofax, Global 360, OpenText, and obviously we partner with Integro. They have given us an opportunity here to introduce them to you. So Scott, next one please. Integro is based out of Denver, Colorado. Pretty nice place to be from, and they were founded in 1995. They are also partners with IBM and have developed a very unique email management solution, which is what you're going to see today, that a number of IBM partners take advantage of, including us. We have developed a particular package with them, a proof of concept solution, which we'll also talk more about at the end of the demonstration so that you have information on that. They have a number of referenceable clients in industry, in both, again, as does IMC, in both commercial and public sector. And as you'll notice in the last bullet item, in a lot of the same areas that IMC has developed some expertise: government, manufacturing, financial services, and utilities. Much is being said lately about, of course, the capstone approach that has come out recently from NARA. The point of the approach is to help make it more practical to manage the avalanche of email that we all have to deal with every day. Here are just some particular statistics, and none of which will come as a surprise to anyone. We all know, of course, that this deluge of email that we have to deal with is a very rich target for discovery and FOIA requests. And it should be noted that the GAO has said that email systems themselves should not be used for storing the official record-keeping copies of messages. In other words, Outlook is not a content management system. That's what that basically comes down to. So it's important to think about a broad strategy in how you are going to deal with email. So NARA has proposed, and most of you are familiar with this, so again, it's not something we'll spend a lot of time on. It's designed to create the concept that for certain high-level officials in agencies, all of their email will be presumptively permanent records, and it will be incumbent on you to call that down. All other email accounts will be considered to have temporary email messages in them. Now, this may be expedient. It certainly makes the approach somewhat easier from a records declaration standpoint on those capstone users, and it does indeed ensure that, I mean, if you capture everything, then you're absolutely certain that you have gotten the record emails. But there are, of course, some challenges with that. Next, Jim. And now NARA even notes some of the challenges of this. It does not optimize the storage of these messages. We think that's particularly important and troublesome. Generally, we know statistically that about 80% or more of the email any user receives is likely not records email. and should not be kept. And the larger the collection you keep, obviously the more complex it becomes to manage, to maintain, to store, and to search that archive when you have to respond to FOIA requests and respond to e-discovery orders. So we anticipate that there is the potential that using the capstone approach for significant volumes of emails to be likely over-retained. Next, please. Now, NARA has recently published this decision tree, which pulls back a little from what we interpreted the initial approach to be, in that most things would be captured. And I think it comes from the recognition that there will be non-record emails that shouldn't be included in the permanent archive for these officials. So as part of this decision tree, NARA has said we recognize that there are going to be likely opportunities to cull non-record emails from the archive. Not only that, but there may be other important emails, even some record ones that rise to the level of record but not permanent, that should likely be actually filed with that matter, with that case, or in a subject-based file. And our thinking about this is that we understand, and nothing in the capstone approach relieves any agency of its obligation to manage all of the other email in the organization. It doesn't just say you only have to worry about managing those email messages designated to capstone accounts. So we believe there are technologies available now that have matured enough to help an organization automate the records declaration process, because let's be honest, that's our concern here, is getting these officials with the amount of email they have to deal with to declare those things as records, them or their delegates. But a lot of technology has matured to the point that using some things and if you'll press the button there for me, Scott, things like the Integro email manager that you're going to see today, combined with products by a number of vendors, including IBM, that will intelligently interpret the contents of messages and be able to auto-categorize some portion of your collection. Then the Integro email manager can allow you those things that weren't obviously record or non-record emails, provide a very simple interface to allow not only for the declaration but the categorization of those messages. So that burden is now taken off of all of the people in your organization, not just the capstone accounts, but everyone. And if you'll go to the next slide, please. So we believe that this allows you to have a standard approach across the entire organization, not one approach for one group of users and another for everyone else. But it provides you a consistent policy and process across the organization to manage email. It will then give you a much smaller archive, which is going to reduce your legal risk, obviously improve your ability to respond to FOIA and discovery requests. The Department of Homeland Security is likely one of the most FOIA'd, if that's a word, agencies in the federal government, with about 450,000 employees and contractors. Last year they responded to 195,000 FOIA requests. Now, if they have to comb through very large email archives in responding to all of those, that's a significant effort. And we have statistics that show by applying these technologies, we can reduce that archive, the size of that archive, by half to 3/4. So that's a pretty significant savings across the organization. And again, it makes it a lot easier. We do also have, IBM has a case study where this was implemented in a large division under the Army, and the system was getting up to 98% accuracy in its auto categorization of technologies. Next, please, Scott.
All right, John, thank you very much. And so now we're going to start to talk about the solution here that John has referenced here. And specifically, there's a software product called Integro Email Manager. It's more than a product. It's a matter of your processes and your policy decisions, your approach in combining that with an enabling technology that makes it very smooth and efficient for administration as well as for your users. The benefits here is full-on email management. The lifecycle governance of every message is managed, and this tool can be applied, as John said, uniformly across an organization, or it can support various policies and approaches. So you could have one set of policies and approach for Capstone users. You could have another set of policies and approach using the same tool set for non-Capstone employees. It automates the records declaration. So this includes auto classification, but with a very, very important differentiator. Most companies that are trying auto classification have tried it with it at the server and without an end user seeing and participating in the process or being aware. And that has a huge hurdle. It requires a huge investment up front for testing, for first the implementation, to get all the sample content for various records categories and such. And then the testing process is just overly burdensome. And if we include the human oversight, as you see there, that is the kind of the magic mixture there to leverage the best of both worlds, the strengths of auto and the strengths of human-based, and putting them together and taking away the negatives of each. So it's a very important approach there, and a very easy, very integrated user experience that is very easy for everyone to use. And then the key here is, as John mentioned a moment ago, over retention is easy to do. It's easy to say, oh gosh, we need to keep all the email, but hitting that easy button and over retaining, even if it's just for a few accounts, and for the volumes of employees for organizations like the various agencies, it becomes very untenable very quickly to have such a volume of content. So the goal is to delete as much as possible, as soon as possible, that is transient, of no business value, no regulatory value. There's no need to keep it. But in order to figure out how to do that, we want to declare the records and classify the records. So let's talk through this just a little bit here. What is Integro Email Manager? It's an enterprise software that will save literally millions of dollars in costs while reducing the risks. And we do this through, like I say, managing the life cycle of all content. Does this with that auto classification with human oversight. You're going to see a demonstration of this here in just a few moments. Intuitive end user control with auto classification. And on the file plan, NARA has introduced an interesting thing here with Capstone, in that email can be a records series. So we can declare email as a record against a single records category of email, as opposed to always the full on schedule. The product has been built to support organizations to easily declare and classify email against your records schedule for your agency, your organization. And the interesting thing there is even if you have 200, 300, X number of records categories in your file schedule, most end users are only going to need to see 3, 4, or 5. So they can personalize it and only see a few, thus getting the benefits of that big bucket. And it really streamlines the process for everyone involved here. And it's an enterprise product made to support organizations of your size. And it's important to think about this. Bottom bullet's important. This is a front end, right? This product integrates into the Lotus Notes client or the Microsoft Outlook client. with their respective servers, Domino and Exchange. And the benefits there, a very tight, easy user experience. It can be done offline. So if you're on a flight going coast to coast and that's the time I often find the best time to manage email, I can do that right there and completely disconnected. I don't need a connection to a server. But then our product basically will tag messages, will manage the life cycle of messages in the mail system, but then the records can be moved over to an archiving platform or an enterprise content management platform, such as John had mentioned IBM as being one that we like the qualities thereof. So Integro Email Manager in combination with a Documentum, an IBM, a Symantec is very powerful. You know, there's a lot of myths out there and a lot of, I'll say, misunderstandings and things that have been developed over time, and I think maybe rightfully so, but they're debunked. You know, we do this every day. We live this world, and we can address these things. So you know, there's too much email, and yes, if you ask users to take a few seconds on every single email that comes in the door, that's too much. You're right. So let's ask them to do one a day or one every other day. That kind of a number, no problem. So if you do exception-based processing, combine that with the auto classification, it reduces the number even more. The user classification, I've often heard the stats that, oh, we tried to have users do it and it didn't work, and it really has to be the right approach. And so the right approach, the exception-based methodology with the right technology supporting the users, we are absolutely successful in having user-based classification. Even with no auto classification, we have very successful implementations. Adding the auto classification just makes it even better. And you often hear the thing, storage is cheap. Oh, it's okay to over-retain. You know, storage is cheap. Well, that just couldn't be further from the truth. If storage was cheap, we wouldn't be spending tens and hundreds of millions of dollars on storage and the software to manage storage and the people to manage storage, and then to migrate it from one storage platform to the new software, the new hardware. I know for real how expensive this is, as we just supported a customer to migrate their email. They had saved all of it since 2006. This was an organization of 20,000 users. And so we just migrated 365 million emails, 38 terabytes. And the bills that had to be paid were very real, and the amount of time it took, close to a year to migrate that amount of content over. Meanwhile, the administrators that run active mail systems, Exchange and Notes, any of them will tell you that it's so much easier and cheaper if there's very little email in it. And if it becomes bloated and overweight with email, it becomes very expensive and burdensome to run. And so storage is not cheap. And e-discovery is not cheap. I don't have that one on there, but e-discovery is it's a cost of business, but it's a cost of business that we can bring down. FOIA requests the cost can be brought down dramatically by having less volume of content to review. So the key is in a hybrid approach. It's not at the end of the extreme of any one thing. It's not 100% auto classification nor 100% human. It's not all the emails. It's only the few. We automatically dispose of the rot. You might hear this terminology, redundant, outdated, and trivial. It's 80% for the short-term rot, and another 15% usually is still of transient nature. Users need to keep it for work for maybe a couple of years, but it's not of record quality. And then central control, yet provide personalization. So server-based plus at the end user level. And Capstone is I applaud NARA for coming up with Capstone and coming up with this direction and this review. And we think combining this with the email classification we're recommending here, it really makes a powerful solution for you agencies. Okay, here's our little pie chart. Very, very important. If we asked the users to invest their valuable time deleting the transient, you could see that wouldn't be very smart. That does not have a lot of value. It's just transient information. I'll meet you, see you at the meeting in 5 minutes, whatever the case might be. And so asking the users to take their valuable time to delete what happens most often would not be an exception-based approach. Our approach is have them invest an ounce of time once a day, etc., on the few that are records. Now, so dispose of the rot, do that automatically and easily. This work in progress, this is really the gap between, well, it's really transient, we can delete it at a short time, say 6 months, and the records are kept per the retention schedule. Well, the users have stuff that, well, gee, I just like to keep stuff in my Outlook or my notes, and I want to access it later. Well, let them. There's not a big cost, not a big risk for that. So let them just flag it with a quick mouse click or drag to a folder and keep that for, say, a couple of years, and keeps the users happy, and it prevents them from doing workarounds of sending it to their personal email accounts or to thumb drives or the file server or the like. So it's still centrally controlled in this model, yet the users are able to keep some personal storage. And then the few that are the records properly retain and govern that content for the right retention period. Whether it's one record series and we're going to keep it, you know, either the permanent record or the temporary is defined in Capstone, or as per the full record schedule in the retention periods by record series, we can do it both, including event-based records categorization. I went too fast there. There we go. So let's, if you don't mind, let's drill into that pie slice a little bit more even. That records is 5%. So of those 5%, these are the ones that you're receiving, say, in a day here. And if less than 5% of those are records, the emails that are sent internally, so from Department of Labor to Department of Labor or something like that, those should be declared by the author as a record when they send it. As I think a lot of folks here have records management experience and training, and you understand that know that the author, the owner, is the one that should declare it as a record. So it's very important that it needs to be done as they send the message. But then all the recipients, they can see visually with an icon that that was already declared as a record, so they just know they've already got, it's already been declared as a record. They've got a convenience copy and no action is required by them. So that reduces the 5% by the ones that were just done internally. And so that means only the inbound email from external organizations has to be classified. And of those, we're going to auto-classify all of them, and every message that comes in the door gets classified, and it's going to accurately get 80%, 90%. I don't want to. It all depends on how well we train it as an organization here. But if it gets 8 out of 10 of those, that only leaves 2 out of 10 or so. So less than about 1% of email requiring an action by the human, and it's done through a simple interface of a click or a simple drag to a personalized folder. Very important. Exception-based processing, it makes this work. So what you're going to see in just a moment, we'll get done with the slideware so that you can see the real deal here, and that is Jeff Dunning is going to show you Integro Email Manager using an Outlook interface, but keep in mind it's for notes as well. And he's going to show these use cases. So email auto-classified, it's kind of on the back end, so he'll show the results of it being auto-classified. And then the next important use case is declaring on send, so as I talked about a moment ago, so he'll show that. And then in place, so a lot of people that try to do end-user based declaration of email say, well, let's make it easy for users, let's give them folders, and they end up pushing out hundreds of records folders, and they're not named the way the users want, they're not organized the way the users want. And some users like to just do things in their inbox, pilers and filers. So declare in place is a capability. You don't have to move it to a certain location. And then folders, the users can name and locate where they want, yet give them special powers. And then also, we're going to mention here all these different ways supports event-based, or some call it case-based records management. So say employee supervisory communications, and you can identify the employee ID or the contract number, policy number, things like that. And then some additional things, a user dashboard to keep users in control, how the users can benefit from personalization, and support for mobile users. So with that, Jeff, we're going to hand it off to you and take us through this thing.
All righty. Thanks, Scott. Just wait for this to flip over. You're gonna make me, here it comes. All righty, so we all should be looking at an Outlook client at this point. So what we're gonna do is we're we're going to actually go through here, and we're going to do this live and show what's going on here. So again, as Scott mentioned, we'll kind of step through those, those exact tasks there. But as those emails come in, they're being categorized by the Smart Assist engine, and they're kind of, so we're taking a look at all that content. And again, it's a small percentage of the content that you're acting on a regular basis. So there's going to be auto stuff. There's going to be stuff that, we're going to flag and say, hey, something you want to look at. And then the other stuff is just not going to be classified based on the content. And there might be a few messages here and there that you have to kind of click through to get that done. We'll see how simple that is and the functionality we can do there. So we'll just kind of go through those use cases. So what you'll see here, my Outlook client, is a couple different icons that we're not used to seeing. That's part of the solution, as well as a designation pane. So through the process, the emails come in and they get categorized. So this red check here, what that's showing us is that this email came through and it's been auto-declared. Based on its content, it's been auto-declared in the system. It's been tagged with the proper metadata. The solution will then take that email, move it to the repository, declare it as a record, do all the formal records management in it. So it's an entire process that goes on there. If the end user wants to see how that was actually declared by the system, we can open the designation pane, and we'll see that the status is declared. It's an official record, and it's in this accounting and finance category. And you can see the Smart Assist values there show you that the accuracy on that was 99.4%. That's coming from the auto classification engine. So the user has the ability to take a look at what they want, if they want to see what that categorization is. But actually, there's no action required by the user. They see that red check mark. It's all taken care of. There's nothing they have to do. But of course, if they want to see it, they can go here. Additionally, what we have next is the yellow star. So the yellow star is, again, auto classification engine found it, but the percentage is probably a little bit less. So it didn't auto classify it, but it's prompting the user to take a peek at it. So if we look at that message, we'll see that it's potentially a record. The Smart Assist value here is 61%, and based on the thresholds we set in the system, we said, you know what, at 61%, we want to prompt the user. We don't want to auto-classify it. We want the user to be involved here a little bit. So the user takes a look at those stats. They say, yeah, that's absolutely correct. They just make that single click. That email becomes a record. They're done with it. The blue checkbox comes up, and again, we apply metadata to the message. The solutions in the back end collect that message, move it out to a repository, put it under formal records management with retention and all that stuff formally. But from an end user standpoint, single click into that Smart Assist category, say, yeah, that's it, and we can move on. That's the simplicity there of the auto classification. So keep in mind, we just looked at a couple of them, but again, the numbers are small. It's a small percentage of your email that's coming and going each day. So those are the two scenarios, auto classify, and as we do the human oversight and we make these suggestions, our accuracy gets better and better over time. So you'll see more and more red check boxes and less yellow stars. Important to note that as we go through this, we'll see how the solution will point out a lot of the potential records to the end user in various different reports and stuff, so that we're always kind of saying to the user, here's something the system thinks might be important. You might want to take a look at it, so that we're only acting and working with that small percentage of emails. We're not worrying about everything else. Okay, so that's kind of the auto classification. We move forward now to a little more of the human oversight, so the end user kind of doing things. So one of the key areas is the sender. The sender knows the content. The sender's going to declare that email when it goes out. So I'm going to send a quick email to myself here. I'm just going to give it a subject of declare on send so we can keep track of that. Again, you'll see that same designation pane here in my new memo form, right? So from here, I could do all the same work I was doing. So I'm saying that I'm creating this content. I know the content, and this is related. It's a legal matter, right? So it's a legal record that we want to save as that record. So I single click into that legal category. Again, those buckets and stuff, Scott talked about them a little bit earlier, how they all kind of work. So you have a list of buckets there. I click into that legal category, and I'm just going to hit the send button. So I'm going to send this message out. The body was there, the content, it's a record. I'm going to hit send. We're just going to wait real quick. This message will come into my mailbox, my inbox here. There it is. So again, the message came in. We have a new icon. We have our yellow check mark. And the yellow check mark is just telling the end user, the recipients of those messages internally, that, hey, the person who created this, the sender of the email, declared it a record. And, you don't have to do anything. So again, I wouldn't have to act upon this. I wouldn't have to do anything. If I want to see it, of course, I can click on the message. The information comes in my designation pane. You can see it's a recipient copy. So it's telling me that it's just a copy of the record that the sender declared, and it shows the information they declared on. So I can keep track of what's going on there. So again, full visibility to what's going on, right? So from a sender's perspective, very simple single click to make that designation. From a recipient's perspective, nothing to do. If you want to view it, you're more than welcome to open the designation pane, view the content, see how that content was designated by the sender, right? So there's a large portion of all the email that you have to act upon. It's either going to be auto-classified. I may have to take a look at that auto-classification on those yellow stars, or I'm going to receive content from the sender. The small portion, as Scott talked about earlier, that less than 1%, that external email that's coming in, I may have to act upon it. It may not have been auto-classified, maybe some new content, whatever the case might be, but I may have to act upon that. So I'm just going to pick a message out here in my inbox, just any one. We're going to do this disciplinary action. It really doesn't matter which one we do here, but I have a message, and again, I'm saying, this message here should be a record. It's something that I need to declare, came from external, and I want to declare it a record again. My categories are in my designation pane. Here's what's available to me, my big bucket type approach. I'm going to say, you know what, this is a congressional correspondence category. So I'm just going to do that single click. Again, one click, I get my blue check mark. You can see the status is declared, and I'm done. I'm acted on that one single message. In place is important, right? So this is activity in place. Consider me, what we like to call filers and pilers. I'm a piler. I'm letting my emails pile up in my inbox. I could do that in place inside of a folder if I have all my emails in a folder someplace. So the in place works anywhere within my inbox, okay? So that's just that simple single click, declare that email a record. Again, same process happens. Metadata, I move to a repository, and we let those tools manage retention and disposition of that formal content in those various systems. Again, so one of the important things, one of the things that we spent a lot of time on is to make sure that there's the flexibility in the system to allow people to use email the way they like to use it, right? Filer or piler, folders, however that case might be. So again, to just show another use case, I may be a person who likes to put my emails in folders. I have a folder structure here in my email, and so I'm going to take this folder, and I want to put emails that are associated to process improvement that are records into that folder. I'm going to right-click on that folder, and I'm going to click on IAM designation. I get a very similar type of designation window that pops up, and what I'm going to do here is I am going to place a profile onto the folder, so that stuff that's moved to that folder is actually going to take on that profile that I'm going to put here. So for this, I'm just going to say this is a training record category. So I click my single category, again, single click. My status says declared, that's some information, but most importantly, I put training on it, and I click OK. Okay? We'll just click into that folder real quick, right? It's an empty folder. Go back to my inbox. I'm going to take my cost of e-discovery and storage email here, and I'm going to drag this message into that folder. So simple Outlook functionality, drag and drop. I drag a message from my inbox into my folder. I'm going to click on that folder, and we'll see that message took on that profile. So it's an official record. It's in the training category. Simple drag and drop functionality that people who use folders in Outlook, they do that all the time. Drag and drop to the various folders, profile those folders. You can have subfolders. They could be profiled differently. I mean, all that functionality works, continues to work. I could rename this folder after the fact. It doesn't lose its profile. So all that kind of functionality that Outlook provides today will still provide after IAM as part of this. So again, we have that second use case of that foldering. So it's just simple drag and drop, and it takes on that profile. So, again, we go back to, the flexibility, allowing the user to continue to work the way they'd want to work in that, in their Outlook client, right? It's my email. I want to do it certain ways. I have certain messages in certain places. All those use cases are supported. Again,
Jeff?
I did a lot of clicking here. Yes.
Jeff, a question came in that I think is, apologies for interrupting, but a question came in that I think is relevant to the demonstration. And the question is, why all the emphasis on internal versus external mail? So if you could comment for a moment on the handling of internal correspondence versus external correspondence, I think that would be great for the audience to hear.
Yeah, so what it comes down to is, so the functionality that we've shown could be used for any kind of messages, but what we have found in the use of the system and getting the feedback from our existing clients is that internal emails, a lot of times the sender is doing the work for the end user, right? So the sender creates the email, they understand the content at creation time, so they're doing the declaration of that content. So that's where I'm getting my recipient copies. So it's just although a sender may not declare it when they send it, and I receive it, and I may do the declaration at that receive time, I can still do it on an internal email. I can drag and drop to a folder. All that functionality is there. What we see is that the internal senders creating the content are declaring it more at send time. That's the kind of difference why we talk internal versus external. Right, where externally we're getting that content in and they don't have that ability to declare it. So as a recipient, I need to actually do that declaration. Did that answer that question well, Jim?
Jeff, this is Scott. I think you did answer it well.
Or Scott will answer for me.
And the net of it is, yeah, thank you. If you have 20 people that are recipients, all 20 people are able to see that it was already declared, so they're not then going through the mental process of, gee, should I declare it as a record and declaring it as a record. So it's more efficient as well. But all the functionality works the same for internal or external email, except for internal email can be declared on send.
Yep, absolutely. Great.
And maybe I didn't make that. I'm going to restate that a little bit here. Internal email can be sent outside the organization, declared as a record as it's sent outside the organization. The recipient outside the organization does not see that it was declared as a record. They don't see anything different about the email, but internally it would be then properly retained and governed by that record series.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Jim.
Jim,
if you see any more questions come in, Jim, feel free to interrupt. I don't see the question pane on my screen here as I do the demo. But anyway, so just a couple things I want to add on to that stuff we've shown, just so that we're very clear on everything. Folders don't have to be don't have to have a profile. A folder can have mixed content. So here you see a miscellaneous email folder, and I have records in here. I have potential records in here. I have emails that are not categorized. So it doesn't have to be a profile folder. So I can have a folder with a whole bunch of content, might have 4 or 5 records, might have a whole bunch of content that aren't records that are going to be deleted at some point in time. So a folder doesn't have to have a profile, and we can do in-place declarations within those folders. So I could pick on a message here, and I can click on a category and declare that inside of my folder. So all that functionality works no matter where you are in your inbox. So that's just important to note. And then the last thing I really wanted to just show is that Scott mentioned it in his slides and stuff, event-based records, right? How do we capture that event stuff? So I'll just show that real quick from my inbox here. So I'm going to pick this, email here, this project status report on RIM, and I'm going to choose that to say that this is the information technology a category, right? And that category is associated with an event, and the event is the end of project. So the retention on this record starts when the project ends. Simple records management type stuff. But we have to capture that. So I have a pull-down list here. I have my RIM project. I just select it. The status goes to declared. It's in information technology. I have my project name. I get my blue check mark. I put this information, again, it's a property on the message. So when that message gets moved or they're taken from my inbox, it gets moved to the repository managed by electronic records management system. The event information's in there. You can search all those records associated with that event. You can close it based on the date, that type of stuff. We have the ability to add new events, to do some searching on those events. So all that functionality there is to associate a record to an event-based category and to capture that event, that metadata event, and move it with the record to the system so it's always available as part of that record. So we know what that event is. Very important in records management to be able to do that event or case type stuff, as Scott had mentioned earlier. So that's just event-based records, and based on the category, the information comes up. So you choose an event-based category, comes up with project name. I put my project name in. Simple. Only added one extra click, one little pull down to put that message in. So when I'm doing event-based, I go from 1 click to 2 clicks. Very simple interface. It's always consistent, and it works that way all over the place. I could put that event onto the folder, whatever the case might be.
Hey, Jeff.
So that's kind. Yes.
Another question here. How are attachments handled?
So attachments are saved with the message. It's our philosophy. It's our, around our solution. We believe that the record, the email message, and the attachments are all the records. So not only is the attachment got information that's a record, but something could be written in the body of the email, when that email was sent, who the correspondent was to. So it's all kept as one. So it's managed as one record. Now, based on the technology you use the IBM technology to put stuff into the repository. Things work a little bit differently. IBM does some stuff with single instance storage of attachments in the repository level and stuff. But at the end of the day, the record is the entire message. It's the message, and any and all attachments associated with it are treated as one.
Thank you.
Sure.
And this is John Masters. As Jeff noted, just to clarify on the repository side, it's generally possible with most all the major products to elect whether you separate the attachments from the email or whether you keep them together. But if once declared, they're both declared regardless of that decision.
Perfect. So that's kind of the use cases. That's where the functionality comes around how you would manage your email, right? So, and then we provide a bunch of tools to assist in that process to give some more easy access to a couple things we need to do. But just to go back, all the functionality, again, is in this designation pane, right? It's icons and a designation pane. That's where the functionality lives. Everything was single click. It's in place. Put the profiles on the folders. I understand, when I get an email from a sender who declared it, my icons tell me. I can look at that and the auto classification, right? Keep in mind, the emails come in. We go through an auto classification process. Hopefully, we're getting a fair number. 80% or more of those are being auto classified. The percentage of those might, need me to just take a peek because my percentage is a little lower. And then this other clicking I do on a very small percentage of them. And when I'm creating content as the sender, if it's important, I'm declaring it at that point in time. So a couple of things to look at. Up here, we have two kind of views associated with this pane. We have our designate email, which is we've been working in, and then we have our settings and reports views. And the settings and reports views has a couple, fairly important areas here, right? The first thing we're going to look at is a dashboard. And what a dashboard is the dashboard is telling the end user kind of what's going on, especially with their auto deletion schedule, right? So we're looking down here at the bottom, and we see we got 3 time frames, and it's showing different types of records and when they're going to be deleted. Here's emails that'll be deleted tonight, this week, this month. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we try to point out potential records. We try to make sure that we bring to the forefront items that the auto classification tool has you know, it could be a record. There's some percentage. It's exceeded one threshold, but we didn't auto-classify it. But they're going to be deleted tonight. You might want to take a look at them, right? And this is all hot links. So I can click the 23, the count of 23. It takes me to a search folder. I can look at the search folder. You see they're all yellow stars, potential records. My percentages are here. And I can start going through those and deciding if I want to declare some of them records before they actually get auto-deleted, right? And I could do that out. You know, I can go this week, look at some more. I can do it for a month ahead, whatever the case might be. This dashboard can pop up for the end user every day. The end user can get to it. It's very simple to get to it, to take a look at it. You know, real life, day one, they're using this kind of stuff. They're getting comfortable with email management, and eventually they're going away from it and saying, you know what, I'm properly doing it. The system is catching everything. I'm well aware of what's going on. I really don't need to worry about this so much. But this tool is there to let the end user know what's going to go on. We're not deleting things blindly and not giving them any access to it. So that's the dashboard. Again, an important tool when you're starting to do deletions of end users' emails. Also in our report area is what's called folder management. And folder management kind of gives you a view. You can see what your folders look like. I'm going to make this window a little bigger. Maybe I won't. If I can drag it, there we go. A little bigger for the sake of the demo here. You can see kind of what's going on. You'll see here's that process improvement folder that we have in our mailbox. It's an official record. I put it in the training category. So I can see where my folders are, how my mailbox is being managed. Very useful day one when I first get IEM. I can go in here, I see my folders, I can make some designations, and also just how things are going. And again, I can look in here, I have some folders and say, hey, you know what, this HR correspondence, I want to designate this. I click that non-designated link, I get my same look and feel, and I can go and put a bucket on this. I could put a category associated with this. I'm just going to, for this case, say it's legal. I click OK. And you'll see in my window back here it changed. It's now an official record for legal. So I can manage my folders from a simple, single interface right here. And that's also under that report step there.
Hey, Jeff, we've got about 5 minutes, so I think we should wrap it up here and turn it back over to B. John Masters for some closing comments.
Perfect. I was pretty close to done. I'm sorry. I love talking about this stuff, so I tend to get a little carried away. Thanks, everyone, for your time.
Thanks, Jeff. We appreciate that. And as we flip back to the desktop with the deck on it, just a few very brief comments to wrap up here.
And actually, B. John?
Yes.
This is Jim. If I could just touch upon a couple of additional questions that came in that I think may be top of mind for numerous agencies, and then we'll wrap it up here. One is how do we go about defining the auto classification accuracy? And we're using machine-based learning technology, and there are a variety of mechanisms to initially train the system by using sample emails to set a baseline, and then that auto classification accuracy improves over time as it learns through more and more messages going through that engine. It's a topic that is more adequately explained in greater than 30 seconds. So if you'd like additional follow-on information, please follow up with us and we can get into that conversation further. But there are a variety of mechanisms for improving that accuracy over time to, again, support the end user and making it easy for them while helping the organization to improve its records management and compliance. Follow-on question to that is how are litigation holds handled? Integro Email Manager, by design, does not overlap with the enterprise content management systems that your organization has or will have in place. So we advocate responsibility for the legal hold capabilities and e-discovery, et cetera, to the ECM platforms, whether that's IBM or EMC or OpenText or the others that are available in the industry today. We are making the content more consumable for those systems by the new metadata that we are attaching to the messages. And we're also improving the efficiency of those platforms because you're no longer polluting the archives with low value, no value content. So again, we can expand on that point further. I realize that we're up against the clock here, so B. John, I'll turn it back over to you for the closing remarks.
Sure. And just to follow on to that, I see there was also a question about 5015.2 compliant. The same applies here in that the point of the Integro email manager is to help you properly identify and designate the email messages that should be archived, and then those are, as a background process, moved into whatever enterprise records management platform you're using. And then that's where all of the other records management functions take place, and that's where you would achieve your 5015.2 compliance, as I think Jim or Scott noted in the response to the question, that we would rely on that repository. And then again, just very briefly here, we have worked with Integro to put together a package of software and services to allow you to get your feet wet in this without having to drive in. Obviously, many of the departments and agencies in the government are quite large, and any sort of initiative along this line could take a significant investment. But we've come up with a proof of concept solution that you can start working with to test this out, sandbox it, see if it works for you, perhaps use it with some of the capstone designated accounts and some regular user accounts. But we provide you a 75 user solution that will, as has been noted, work in Outlook or Notes, and a defined set of services to come in and implement it for those 75 users within your organization, provide you the training and knowledge transfer necessary to take advantage of it for those, for a price of $75,000. So some agencies can find some year-end money for projects of this scope, and we provide that. And nothing about this POC limits the functionality. Those 75 users enjoy the full functionality of the system, and it doesn't in any way slow down or hinder the expansion of the system to other users. It's just simply we're going to start with 75 users. So if there are any other questions, we'll be glad to take those for you and answer them. And on the next slide, Scott, there is some contact information a little further down. There we go. And if you, as has been mentioned, we are more than happy to come and meet with you all, your agencies individually. We also have a white paper as well as this slide deck, which we can provide to you if you will get in touch. Send me an email there or give me a call, and we'll make sure we get the information out to you. Scott, anything to follow up with on your end?
No, John, thank you. That was excellent. Jeff did a nice demo. I appreciate it. I was glad to see some of the questions. There were some definitely good questions. So look forward to further calls if you want to go deeper, as Jim had mentioned earlier.
And it is 2 o'clock on the nose, so we kept our commitment.
How about that?
Well, thank you all for joining us today. Really do appreciate it. We look forward to following up again on the slide, and we'll leave it up for a couple of minutes here so you can jot down their contact information, and we will follow up accordingly. And enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.